Thursday edition, Orange and Blue today. Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason, and mock draft season, Mace. Before we get into Mel Kiper's first mock draft, and is it totally wrong for the Denver Broncos? How many mock drafts are too much? This is the first of Mel Kiper's, and he's going to do more, and God bless Mel Kiper, but what's your opinion on too many mock drafts?
It feels like everybody has to have them.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of them are wholly unnecessary. I'd say this. I think if you are part of the mock draft industrial complex and you're cranking these things out, you should be limited to one before the All-Star games.
Okay.
One between the All-Star games and the Combine. One after free agency, the first wave or two of free agency and teams' needs kind of come into sharper focus heading into the draft. And then maybe if you're feeling frisky right before the draft, although I don't really think you need one right before the draft if you've done one after the first couple waves of free agency. At that point, most of your pro days are done. You're basically in pretty good shape at that point in terms of knowing what you're going to know.
Yeah, you should be in pretty good shape by that time. So we certainly appreciate Mel Kiper. I've said it a million times. There's no me if there's no Mel Kiper. He started an industry by basically just mailing, postage in hand, mailing his reports to teams to then get on ESPN and then become the draft king. He's the king of the draft. His first mock draft has been released. And it's kind of a pipe dream for me, Mace, because it's Ashton Jeanty at 20. But as you see in our handy dandy thumbnail with Tyler Warren at 14 to the Colts. Dallas Clark comparisons abound, even though he might be much better. Just, I don't think Warren's there at 14, and I don't think Jeanty's there at 20.
The one thing that could push Jeanty down is the proliferation of running backs in this class. And if everyone just starts saying, oh, well, we can wait, then all of a sudden it's okay, who blinks first and takes the first running back off the board? Because I think, with all respect to the running back class, which is deep and talented, and you and I have already talked about this quite a bit, and we'll certainly come back to this over the next 3 months, teams may look and say, okay, if I can get Devin Neal in round 2, why do I need to get Ashton Jeanty in round 1? The question then becomes, how special do you believe Ashton Jeanty is as a prospect? Of course, Derrick Henry was a special prospect, and he didn't go until the second round. I think we're past the Trent Richardson conversation. Of course, remember Trent Richardson kind of spoiled top 5 running backs for a while?
He did. Yep.
In the draft process, a pretty thorough bust.
Maybe all the way to Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And in between, there was like Leonard Fournette was a top pick. People forget about that. A couple picks after Mitchell Trubisky, top of my head. And Solomon Thomas of the 49ers. So it's like, there's been a few times there's been top 10 running backs, Christian McCaffrey in that category as well. So it happens once in a while. But yeah, Trent Richardson ruined people for taking a workhorse back in college. And I think that's where the Jeanty conversation, if he were to fall to 20, Mace, it's because of those 750 carries.
Yes. And that's something that's going to come into play. I mean, the Broncos had a running back that they took 12 years ago that had a high touch total in college. And that, of course, was Monte Ball from Wisconsin in the second round. There were other issues, of course, in play. He had to deal with alcoholism, and that helped end his career early. But the workload definitely is a factor, and so you have to consider that. Like now, Derrick Henry has flown in the face of that, but similar to how you and I say, okay, Brock Bowers is a unicorn, and you can't view other prospects at his position through the lens of Bowers, I would say You can't view other running backs through the lens of Derrick Henry in terms of how much he had as a workload. For whatever reason, the man is a piece of granite. He's unique. You can't rely on a running back with that sort of, tread on the tires, being able to sustain it in the NFL. And so that's something that'll give teams pause. And I would say there'll probably be at least a few teams that don't have Ashton Jeanty on their board because he's had so many touches at the college level. Now, that being said, you ask yourself, okay, how much does he have left as a pro? And that's the other thing with running backs. You're not talking about this guy being still on your team 8, 9, 10 years from now, by and large. I mean, you mentioned Leonard Fournette, 7 years and out of the league. Yep. Leonard Fournette also, career average, didn't even reach 4 yards a carry. The thing that makes him memorable is the old phrase, playoff Lenny.
Playoff Lenny.
Because he came up big for the Jaguars when they went to the AFC Championship game back in the 2017 postseason. And he did the same for the Bucs when they went to the Super Bowl and defeated the Chiefs. Playoff Lenny was very much a thing. Regular season Lenny was kind of pedestrian for most of his career, was he not?
He was. Now, Ashton Jeanty's carries are roughly about 50 more than Saquon Barkley had at Penn State, Barkley being a top 5 pick, number 2 overall. And the comparisons, okay, not one for one because he's 5'9", but still, Jeanty is drawing some Barkley comparisons. People saying Emmitt Smith. Remember, Emmitt Smith was 5'9" as well. So the comparisons are there. Is he special? And Mace, I'll say this to kind of counter the people that say he's got 750 carries. Well, in Denver, they're going to use a committee. Sean Payton's already said that his entire history is he's got 2 backs, not 3. This year was kind of a mess because he had 3. He's going to have 2. So wouldn't Denver be the perfect spot? Now, I want Ashton Jeanty in the first round. Full disclosure. Yeah. I want, even if Warren's on the board, I want Jeanty in the first round. He can make the impact right away. So isn't Denver the perfect spot? Because he won't be getting the 350 carries a year. He'll be getting like 200, 225 carries, something like that.
Maybe, but then you have to have the positional value conversation. If he's, 1 or 1A in a timeshare, is that worth it compared to how many snaps you're potentially going to get out of a tight end? Because if you drafted Tyler Warren, I don't think he's going to be there at 20. For that matter, I don't think Tyler Warren's going to be there at 10. I think he goes inside the first 9 picks.
Yep.
But if you picked Tyler Warren or you picked a primary tight end, well, they're probably going to be on the field for more snaps than a running back would. So I think that comes into play as well. I mean, we had the conversation earlier about the number of touches for Alvin Kamara with the Saints. Well, just to go through Ashton Jeanty here, because we're gonna include receptions as well as runs here. Okay, this past season, Ashton Jeanty had 397 touches.
Whew.
Last year, he had 263 touches. Let's just split the difference on that, and realize. So that's 134. That's 70. So that's
like 330.
Yeah, it's about 330 touches a year. Ideally, he's not going to have that. And oh, by the way, when we're talking about that touch count, he's got that was 14 games, I believe, for Boise.
I believe so, yes.
12 plus the conference championship plus the playoff game. And you're not going to be talking about that. I mean, if you're talking about probably 220 touches over 17 games, that'll ease up a bit. So certainly the Broncos could do some things to make things easier, but then it becomes a question of, okay, 1A, 1B, whatever we're going to call him, are we getting more out of him than we would get out of a tight end there in the early first round?
I would say this, Mace, because we're talking about snaps. I would go to total yards, and all due respect to Tyler Warren, who's going to be fantastic. And whether you compare him to Jimmy Graham or Dallas Clark or any of the Taysom Hill, anything that's floating around out there, he's not going to have 1,000 yards. We just know that. we know rookie tight ends, there's been 2 that have done that in recent years. One is Brock Bowers, and he's unfair. He's going to get the Bowers bump, and then he's going to get unfair comparisons like, why can't he do what Brock Bowers does, even though he's a different prospect? I believe if Ashton Jeanty was your 1A and Jaleel McLaughlin was your 1B, something like that, that Jeanty would conservatively get 1,500 all-purpose yards as a rookie, whereas Tyler Warren would get about 500 yards as a rookie. And unless he has an Evan Ingram season, which I believe was about 700 yards, and that was year OJ Howard was then, that also, Jake Butt and George Kittle was in that draft. But anyway, so it's like, if we just go yardage on a team that needs help now, I think Warren will play longer than Jeanty. There's almost no question about that. But I think for the next couple of seasons, a guy like Jeanty would have 1,500 all-purpose yards, or a guy like Warren will have, 500 to 700.
But as you know, Cease, at tight end, it's not just about the pass catching. As you go on, it's about the blocking as well. And you don't have to be a devastating blocker, but are you a willing blocker? I mean, I think one thing that I believe will probably separate Tyler Warren a bit from Brock Bowers. He will not be as productive a pass catcher as Brock Bowers. Let's say that right there, but he might be a better blocker than Brock Bowers is. Mm-hmm. And a comparison I make as far as production that I expect as a pass catcher, I talk about TJ Hawkinson a lot. Now, TJ Hawkinson, of course, he's 6 years into his career. TJ Hawkinson averages 830 yards per 17 games. Just under 50 yards a game for his career. You would be ecstatic at that, but obviously, yardage-wise, it doesn't match up to Ashton Jeanty, which is why you have to consider the other factors involved. The other thing also, it's the difference between these players and what you can get in round 2 and round 3, okay? And that's where we go into the conversation about Devin Neal. Omarion Hampton, if he happens to fall into round 2. At tight end, you go into the conversation about Harold Fanning Jr. out of Bowling Green and others that we're going to get into.
Sure.
Is Tyler Warren that much better than Fannin? Is Ashton Jeanty that much better than Neal? That's what you're going to have to figure out if you're the Broncos here, because the other thing that could happen is if you decide, okay, they're not that much better, do you throw a curveball and say, we're going to go interior D line from a really good interior D line class at 20?
Yep. It's part of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's kind of under the radar. And we'll talk about this as we look at players in the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl. We will both be looking not only for running backs and tight ends, but we will also be looking for defensive linemen that can help perhaps run stuffers. You need some big bodies there. And also in the conversation, and this is interesting based on what Mike Kliss said today on Dover and Cecil, shameless plugs abound on this show, Mace. Kliss said that he thinks, so, Kliss putting it out there, they'll address ILB and free agency.
Yeah. So
I ask you this, just one name. You want to steal Nick Bolton from the Chiefs?
Oh,
I looked over once Kliss said that, and he also said that they wouldn't get T. Higgins and they'd pay Cortland Sutton $25 million a year. It's another conversation, but like when he said he believes they will take care of inside linebacker via free agency, and I see Nick Bolton almost right there at the top of any sort of free agent inside linebacker list, and you steal him from a division rival, pay him handsomely for sure, but kind of like that idea.
The question is he worth it? Like, his last 2 seasons haven't been as good as his first 2. Yet he still causes you problems. Part of it is it's not just that you'd be getting Nick Bolton. It's that you'd be taking Nick Bolton away from the Chiefs and thus not having to deal with him, because going back to his rookie season, he has been a problem for the Broncos.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's the appeal there, even though I do wonder if we've already seen peak Nick Bolton. That being said, is he better than what the Broncos have or could potentially have there? Yeah. All due respect to Cody Barton, Justin Sternad, and Alex Singleton, by the way, is coming off the ACL, obviously, but you do know with Alex Singleton that's the Broncos can get some cap savings from his contract, right?
Believe it's $3 million. Top of my head is that they can save some money with his deal. I know fans like the idea of some fans want to keep everybody.
5.58 million.
Okay, so $5.5 million
to actually go through. The Broncos only have a small handful of players that they can create cap room with in excess of $4 million. Okay. PJ Locke, they get 4.19 million. Nick Benito, 5.217 million, but you're trying to get him extended ideally, right?
Yes.
Alex Singleton, 5.58. The only ones that would generate more cap space would be Cortland Sutton at 6.875 million and John Franklin Myers at 7 million. I don't think JFM's going anywhere. I don't think Cortland Sutton's going anywhere either. So
no, not at all. Not at all.
I have a visitor, by the way.
You have a visitor. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi.
How's it going?
How's it going? Did you just toot?
No.
Okay, sorry. Must have heard something else.
Might have been you, Mace. Might have been
No.
you. You're good there. You're good there.
I thought thought I smelled something. Of course, they could say he who smelt it dealt it.
Yes.
But
that's the old saying. I also skunk smells his own hole first. So
where are you going, Charlotte?
I wanted to say hi.
Oh, well, hi.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Have you done your homework yet?
No, I'm about to.
Good. Do your homework.
Okay.
I like that. All Charlotte appearances are welcome on this show. So
yes. She's become a fan of my little camera thing here that we've been using.
The
Osmo.
Osmo.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We need to get a deal from Osmo. Hey, sales, are you listening? Like, we will promote the hell out of that because that's like the coolest thing ever.
She's talking about becoming a vlogger with it.
That's right. Right. There you go. Joe asks in the chat room, who's the number 2 running back, Caleb Johnson or Trevion Henderson? Henderson and Judkins. They kept saying it wrong on the broadcast. But anyway, both the Ohio State backs are behind Caleb Johnson, but Omarion Hampton's the second best back.
I think so, too.
Caleb Johnson's probably third in there. Samson Simpson, the Tennessee kid, somewhere in there. So, like, early swipe, my final rankings won't be done till the combine. But, like, yeah, Caleb is further back than, and one spot back, basically, from Omarion Hampton.
And notice we're not saying Cam Scattaboo, who I think is down another tier.
I had him at 8. You had him at, like, 12.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I've got him end of day 3 into day 4, or day 2 into day 3. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Round 3, round 4 right now.
Yeah. That could be about right.
I could be wrong. This is the thing. When we're getting set to go down and actually put our eyes on these guys, minds do change. We will look when we do this show a week from now, wrapping up what we saw at Senior Bowl practice, we will live in a different world than we do today.
Mm-hmm. Might be a Scattaboo world.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then we go from there. I mean, look, our evolution with Bo Nix was interesting because I think we had a different opinion on Bo Nix at the end of the week than we did on Tuesday.
Much more so.
Yes.
I mean, on Tuesday, he really struggled. Struggled.
That first day was a bad day for Bo Nix of Senior Bowl week.
And that's when he was working under center. And I asked him his comfort level. And he, he was upset by that question. But I like the fire.
Little bit of fire. We need that GIF, the eye GIF.
Oh, yeah, for sure. By the way, isn't it nice that we don't have to... We'll be looking for backup quarterbacks, but we don't have to look for a starter anymore. Bo Nix, he is him. He's the man. I ain't afraid of nothing. Cecil Lammy asking me about it under center. Like, you love it, man. You love to see it.
We'd be trying to talk ourselves into Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad we don't have to do that.
Yes. Very much so. Very much so. And it's worked out for the best. You got to believe, like your sticker says, right, Mace?
Yeah, Bowley, right there, right
Mhm.
there.
Believe. Make it happen.
I believe the Broncos won't be paying much attention to quarterbacks in the next 3 months. By the way, speaking of believe and believing, there are still a lot of mock drafts out there that are going Broncos Luther Burden out of Mizzou.
I saw that. Yeah.
But I don't see receiver right now. I know we talked about it as the season early on in the season, but I think as things evolved at wide receiver, and we just had the show where we talked about how they've got 4 receiver prospects, first or second year guys that they want to see where they go. You have Cortland Sutton coming off his first 1,000-yard season since 2019. You figured out a role for Marvin Mims Jr. I think receiver has dropped down a little bit on the priority list compared to where it was. You want to get more dynamic in terms of playmakers, but I think we're talking about that dynamic nature coming from tight end and running back. And by the way, I want to say this about tight end. If you did wait until round 2, could Harold Fannin be a joker?
1,000%.
And that's something I think we almost need to have 2 tight end conversations. We need to have a conversation about more traditional tight ends, but we also need to have a conversation about tight ends as jokers. Because remember, there was a brief look at, could Greg Dulcich be a joker? Could Albert Okwuegbunam be a joker? Could Lucas Kroll be a joker, right? All these things that were in play. Marvin Mims Jr., he's in the club, but he's not of the joker size. Okay, well, then let's talk about guys who are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". They're tight ends, but they're more guys who operate in space. They're not built to be in line. That I think is a fascinating element to this tight end discussion, because could you get that guy on day 2 rather than day 1?
Does Fannin do enough at the Senior Bowl to move into round 1?
Ooh,
That's my fear, because right now he's seen mostly as a 3rd round pick,
yeah.
maybe a 2nd round pick, but that could quickly turn into 32. Could quickly turn into the last pick of the draft and somebody takes him.
Okay.
Commanders take him to replace Zach Ertz. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or if you see that happening, do you sacrifice a future pick to move up? Do you say, okay, to go from where do the Broncos
52?
pick in round 52, I believe?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because I believe they're picked, because they're pick 20 and then they're pick 19 in the second round. The cost to go from 52 to 31, probably talking about your 3 and maybe a future pick, a future day 2 pick. Would you do that?
If Fannin does what we think he can do at the Senior Bowl, then yes.
All right. Well, then, okay. Could I sell you, if Ashton Jeanty somehow did drop to 20, as Mel Kiper Jr. suggests, could I sell you on Jeanty and Fannin?
1,000%. That's almost a dream scenario for me.
Yeah. I got a little chill thinking about that.
Chills.
You imagine that. Imagine if you pulled something like that off and you found 2 weapons, and both with those joker characteristics, because Jeanty can catch the ball. Okay.
Yes.
This is somebody you can move around if you want to. He can be a chess piece. It's one of the reasons why the Kamara discussion comes up, because he does have that ability to him.
Yes, he does. So do you want Tyler Warren and Omarion Hampton, who I don't think would be there at 52?
I don't think so either.
That would be Devin Neal, and I like Devin Neal a lot. But it's like, do you want Tyler Warren and Devin Neal, or do you want Ashton Jeanty and Harold Fannin?
Now, Fannin, I don't think you're going to ask him to do much in the way of blocking, and that's something you're going to have to accept. But Sean Payton had Jimmy Graham and – flourish with Jimmy Graham. Okay. if the guy is a dynamic enough pass catching target, they'll find a way. Like, believe me, if there had been a little more dynamic work from Albert O, or Greg Dulcich, they'd still be on this team right now.
Mm-hmm.
They had chances.
Yep. It wasn't for lack of chances.
Yeah. Especially Dulcich.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they really like this past year, they really wanted him to seize it, and he never did.
Mm-hmm. You had your chances.
And now we start the process anew.
I could say the same thing about Audric Estime. It's why running back's so high for me. It's like, dude, you couldn't beat out Javonte, and Javante's not Javonte anymore. And as a running back, you better make that instant impact unless your name's Thomas Jones.
How much do you think that week 1 fumble hurt?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Because he'd had fumbles in preseason and training camp too. That was the thing.
Yep.
It wasn't an isolated fumble. At that point, that's where the sphincters of the coaching staff start to tighten. Oh, can we really give this guy the ball? Can we trust him with it? And Sean Payton will tell you like about how fumbles. I mean, the fumble is basically a ticket to exile if you're a running back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
by the way, you have fired up our chat room.
Why?
Because they're saying Jeanty fan and dream come true.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about bringing matchup problems. And the thing is that you already have some pieces here. I think we've seen that you can have a matchup problem from Marvin Mims Jr. for a defense. Somebody's going to be Tim Patrick in this offense.
Yep.
Might be Vele, might be A.T. Perry. Somebody's going to be Tim Patrick. Who's it going to be? By the way, do you think Lil Jordan Humphrey is back?
Well, he's Sean's guy, so.
He's Sean's guy, but like, I think they want to. I could see a scenario where Lil Jordan isn't re-signed in March, but like comes back in August.
I could see that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could definitely see that for sure.
The other possibility I could see with all the rumblings about Chris Banjo potentially going to Aaron Glenn's staff. Remember, Aaron Glenn worked 5 years under Sean Payton with the Saints before following Dan Campbell to Detroit. Aaron Glenn also played a year for the Saints back in 2008. So Aaron Glenn's very much on the Sean Payton tree as far as coaching goes. And I can, and the thing that we see, like, look at how Quan Alexander went to Detroit for a bit. Look how Tim Patrick went to Detroit. There's very much this, like, there was this New Orleans, Denver, Detroit thing going on. I think we're going to see the New York Jets add to that as well. And I could see the Broncos choosing to go forward with younger receivers and Lil Jordan Humphrey winding up with the Jets as they try to kind of establish a culture there.
Yep. And maybe establish a culture with Darren Muji, right? Sounds like he's gone. Second interview with the Jets today.
He's not the only one doing a second interview, though.
There was, who else was doing the second interview with
Trey Brown of the Bengals.
You're right. Well, all I know is any sort of Broncos executive that George Payton's been around, kind of want that guy.
Yeah, and he goes back to John Elway. I mean, he was one of the ones who was retained, and
when
actually
Adam Peters was here.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Hell of a group. Kliss tweeted that out yesterday about Elway's tree of executives, and it's pretty fruitful.
Don't forget, John Spytek is about to become the Raiders.
Yep.
GM, it looks like, and he worked for the Broncos for 3 seasons before moving on to Tampa Bay. So, didn't work out for John Elway long term, although he did get a Super Bowl. It did go well for a while, but John Elway's executive tree is producing some fruit too.
Hey, he had lots of good help, right?
Yeah,
lots of good help on that.
That was the key. When some of the help started leaving is when things started to go sideways.
All right, Mace. We got a nice Shrine Bowl preview for everyone on Friday as we're traveling to Dallas. We will be then in Mobile, Alabama, doing the show on the road. And yeah, man, checking in with our peeps here on YouTube. It's going to be fun.
Maybe we'll have to do a road show while we're driving to practice. Break out the
out the Osmo. Yeah. Well, it is 30-minute drive, so
we got a long drive from Frisco to Denton.
Yes. But we like road trips. And we like hanging out with each other, so that's a good combination.
It is good times, good fun.
Nice.
Gonna have a lot of interesting conversations over the next few days, some of which will not be on this show.
That is correct. We got a lot to get to, that's for sure. But before we're out of here, Mace, we need people's help on YouTube. And how can they do that?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe.
Hit that notification bell
so that you
never
miss vid. That's right. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammy saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Stay frosty.